In this video, we're going to review the process of making a macro in eClinicalWorks. A macro allows you to write any text that you want and then use a short command to trigger this. This is often called quick text in some other electronic medical records. In this case, we're going to make one for recommendations after a patient has had a sports injury. To do so, we first have to make the macro. We go up to the EMR menu, go to Miscellaneous Configuration Options, and Configure Macros. When you click this, the macro window will open. Up above, you can see the window for making new macros. Down below, you can see any macros that have already been created. We're going to create a new one. Anything with an asterisk has to be completed. I'm going to call this one RICE for rest, ice compression, and elevation. And now I have to give it a shortcut. The shortcut name is the command that you type to invoke the macro text to be inserted. So in this one, I'm naturally just going to name it RICE, and now I'm going to type in what I actually want it to say when I Okay, I have now written the instructions that I want to appear, although this could be much more extensive. And I'm going to click Save, which is here. I've now saved it, and I'm going to close it so we can use it. In this case, we're going to go to a patient progress note. This is a fake patient, and I have diagnosed him with an ankle sprain. You can see here. And in my treatment, I want to write my RICE recommendations. Rather than printing it out every time or dictating it in Dragon, I can simply use this new macro that I've created, and I'm going to write it in the notes box. I'm actually going to click Browse because I want to open this up and it will make a bigger space for me to see, although this is a short macro. When I click Browse, a bigger window appears. When I click in here, now I write the name of the macro. This is the name that triggers the macro, in this case RICE, and then to activate it I have to hit Control Spacebar. If I just type RICE, nothing will happen. So now when I click Control Spacebar, you can now see that the word RICE is replaced with the actual macro text. Now this could have multiple paragraphs and different formatting options are available. I just showed you the most simple one. I can use multiple ones in the same window. For example, I have another macro called Narcotic Warning, and that I have named NW. That's my triggering text. I hold down the control button and click the space bar, and now my macro for Narcotic Warning appears. I can close and go back to the progress note, and now you can see my instructions that are here. I can also use the same process for editing an existing macro. Perhaps I don't like the phrasing of one that I have. The process is almost identical. I go back to the EMR menu, Configuration Options, and I configure macros. Now I can scroll down, find the macro that I want to edit or delete. In this case, let's go edit the RICE macro. I'm going to click Edit, and now when I scroll back up, you can see the name, the trigger, and the text written here. I can add something like a medication recommendation. When I click Save, that is now saved. And now when I use RICE in the future in a text box and trigger it by hitting Control Spacebar, then I will have the new updated text, which you can see right here. That's how you use any clinical macro. You can use them in any window where you can type or drag in free text.